They crucified hope. But one man refused to kneel. What began as a bid for freedom became Rome's worst nightmare. Armies fell, consuls bled. The Senate trembled, and Spartacus, kept marching. Rome turned to its cruelest general, Crassus. He gave no speech, no plea. Just a sword raised, he fought until his sword broke. And then with his bare hands, he will never be remembered, not as a senator, not as a general, not even as a king, just a slave, one of thousands. Yet in a world ruled by iron and blood, he did the unthinkable. He dared to defy Rome. His name was Spartacus, and in the winter of 73 BC, with nothing but his chains and his rage, he lit a fire that would consume the Italian peninsula. What began as a prison break became a revolution. Gladiators turned warriors, slaves turned leaders. A scattered band turned into a threat so great it shook the Roman Republic to its core. For 2 years, the Senate scrambled, generals fell, legions bled, and through it all, Spartacus led them. Not for glory, not for power, but for something far more dangerous: hope. Who was this man the Romans feared so deeply? How did he unite the outcasts of an empire and nearly bring it to its knees? This is not just a tale of rebellion. It's a mystery buried under centuries of conquest. And to understand why Rome crushed his memory with such fury, you have to go back to where it all began. Before the storm, there was the empire, but not the empire you know. In 73 BC, Rome was still a republic, bloated, brutal, and burning with ambition. It wasn't ruled by emperors yet, but by an elite class of senators whose power stretched from Spain to the sands of Syria. Victory had made them rich, too rich. From every conquered land came gold, tribute, and most of all, slaves. Hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children ripped from their homes, sold in markets, and worked to death on Roman soil. Their suffering fueled Roman glory, and at the heart of this system was fear. A quiet, relentless fear, because Rome was built on the backs of those it had enslaved. If they ever rose up, even for a moment, the illusion of control could shatter. It had happened before. Minor revolts, silenced with fire and crucifixion. But none had ever truly threatened the Republic itself. Rome's ruling class didn't believe they could. After all, slaves were uneducated, disorganized, and broken. Or so they thought. Meanwhile, far from the marble steps of the Senate, on a bleak volcanic plain in southern Italy, stood Capua, a provincial town with a sinister claim to fame, its gladiator school. There, inside thick stone walls, hundreds of men were trained like animals, to kill, to die, to entertain. These were not criminals. Many were war captives, rebels, or men who had once led armies before being sold into chains. Among them was a man from Thrace, a soldier once allied to Rome, now betrayed and enslaved. His name was Spartacus. What kind of man was he? We may never know fully. The Romans wrote his story in shadows, through fragments, not facts. To them, he was a problem, not a person. But what is clear is this: Spartacus wasn't like the others. He was quiet, observant, patient, and above all, defiant. He watched, he listened, he waited, until the time came when the weapons meant to entertain emperors would turn against Rome itself. But there's something deeper here, because Spartacus didn't rise in a vacuum. The Republic by this time was already cracking. Its politics were poisoned. Corruption ran deep. Ambitious generals like Crassus and Pompey were fighting for power behind the scenes, turning the Senate into a battleground of egos and greed. While the elite drank from silver goblets and plotted their futures, Italy's fields were filled with slaves, over 1/3 of the population, an underclass without names, without rights, without mercy. No one expected them to fight. No one believed they could organize. And certainly, no one imagined they could win. But in Capua, behind locked gates and blood-stained sand, Spartacus had already begun to test the walls. The greatest slave uprising in history was not born of chaos. It was born of calculation, of discipline, of fire, contained too long. And when it erupted, it would make the Republic tremble. It began with a whisper. A rumor passed from cell to cell, breath to breath. A stolen glance, a clenched jaw, a silent nod. In the training compound of Capua, gladiators were used to pain, but something was different now. The guards had grown lazy, arrogant, and the men hungry. Not just for food, for freedom. One night, the plan was set. Crude weapons were hidden: kitchen knives, wooden stakes, iron spits stolen from the kitchens. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Then it happened. A slip, a betrayal. Someone talked. The school's overseers discovered the plot. The revolt was to be crushed before it even began, but Spartacus refused to wait for death. He and a handful of others acted fast, striking with whatever they could grab. They stormed the kitchens, seized cleavers, fire pokers, even roasting spits, and turned them into blades. They fought like men possessed, not trained gladiators, but wolves cornered and unleashed. The guards fell quickly, some fled, others begged for mercy. None was given. Within hours, the compound was theirs. 74 gladiators, barely armed, barely armored, had done the unthinkable. They escaped. But escape was not survival. Outside those walls waited the Roman world. Roads patrolled, towns armed, legions stationed nearby. And yet, they didn't run. Led by Spartacus, the fugitives took refuge on Mount Vesuvius, not the deadly volcano we know today, but a wooded height with natural defenses and secret paths known only to locals and bandits. From there, they struck. Fast, brutal, clever. They raided Roman supply lines, freed nearby slaves, gathered weapons and food. What had started as a jailbreak was becoming a movement. Rome took notice, but not seriously. The Senate, contemptuous and proud, sent a small militia under a praetor named Gaius Claudius Glaber to crush the rebels. A mere formality, they thought, a show of force. Glaber cornered the rebels on Mount Vesuvius. He blocked the only known path down, laid siege, and waited. No food, no water, no escape. But Spartacus was already thinking 10 steps ahead. As the Romans waited, drunk on their own certainty, the rebels gathered vines from the forest, long, thick, twisted ropes. By night, they rappelled down the cliffside, behind enemy lines. They attacked with fury and precision. Glaber's men, scattered, sleeping, unprepared, were slaughtered in the dark. By dawn, the Roman camp was on fire, and Spartacus, the runaway slave, held Roman weapons in his hands. This was no longer a revolt. It was a war.